All right, so just like I said, we're at the end, guys. We're right here. All right, so with this part, it says sometimes you will not need to write out the sample space. Sometimes you just won't. Sometimes it's just that easy, you won't have to do it. But sometimes you will need to make sure the probabilities are correct. Now, with this, and in your notes there, please don't put two twos. Like, we don't need that second word. We'll need to make sure. All right, so with that, as an example here, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about that and we're going to do it because the sample space should be pretty easy to find. Like the possible outcomes should be easy to find, but what are probabilities? All right, so looking at this, it says you want to create a probability distribution for the number of heads that show up if you toss 2 coins. So guys, this is like if it's a game and you're like, okay, I want to see if I can make money off of this thing. Pretty much this is what you can do to try to see, okay, is it really good? And just to give you a heads up as where we're going, expected value deals with games, and if you can actually do the game and make money off of it or lose money or whatever to see should you play this game or not. Right? So here we're going to take a look at the flipping it 2 times. So we're going to talk about our sample space. So I'm going to write this out. I think you guys can actually figure it out without me actually writing it down, but I'm just going to do this. So sample space, we know if we flip a coin twice, we can say, okay, the first one's head, the second one's heads. Okay. Let's do it again. Let's try it one more time. So we can flip 2 coins. We say the first one's heads, the second one's tails. Okay, that's an outcome. Flip it 2 more times. Let's say we have tails first, then heads. And then we flip it again. And okay, like this time we can say we have tails, and then we have tails. So then we think, okay, is there any other way we can do this? Any more ways? Is this it? Is there any more ways? What can we do? And we're like, oh, that's it, guys. That's it. That's all we can do. So our sample space is actually 4 things here. So there's 4 outcomes. Outcomes. All right. Now, this is talking about the number of heads that show up. So with it, when we start talking about this part, we're making our table. Let's go to make our table real quick. Real quick. Bam, table's there. So I got magic. So with that, like we talked about before, our outcomes are up top. And if you need to pause this and actually write the table down, you can do that real quick too. Remember, the problem down here is probability. The parts down here is probability. All right. So with it, the number of outcomes, we're talking about the number of heads that can happen. So we can have it where there is no heads going on at all. You have no heads. And then we do this 0 heads. You have 1 head. And then you have it where there's actually 2 heads. And if you look at your possible outcomes there, there's no more, you can't do 3 heads or 4 heads or 5 heads. It's just 1, 2, 0, 1, or 2. So if we look at our probabilities, no, there's 4 in all. If we're talking about 0 heads, that's only 1 of the 4. So 1 out of 4. When it comes to 1 head, there are 2 possibilities. We can either have heads, tails, or tails, heads. So that's 2 out of 4. Right? And then our third one. So we have 2 heads. Right? When we have 2 heads there, there's only 1 time. So that's 1 out of 4. And we're like, okay, cool, we got this. So let's really quickly, let's check this in the characteristics to see if it's right. If this actually is a discrete probability distribution. And we said the first thing is each one of these have to be less than 1, between 0 and 1, I should say, between 0 and 1. 1/4 is between 0 and 1. 2/4 is between 0 and 1. 1/4 is between 0 and 1. We also said that if we add them up, number 2, that they should equal 1. So we know the base is 4 here. So 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 1 more is 4. So that's 4 over 4, which is 1. So it satisfies both characteristics of it. So that's it, guys. We're good. Bam. All right. All right, guys. I'm going to throw this in here because, like, I realized that some people are, like, struggling on this part and not remembering what's going like. So I'm going to say this part real quick here at the end of everything. If you remember back on this problem here, where we talked about rolling the die and the probabilities of this happening and that happening, we said for example, like number 2 here says greater than 3. What normally happens and what like confuses people a lot is if I throw up a word that says like, well, less than 4 versus 4 or less. So we already know this. We should be good on this part, but just want to reiterate this so when we get to the work and everything, you're not confused. Nobody's confused at all across the board. So we say a number is less than 4. That means we're going to do all the numbers that are going to be smaller than 4. So that includes numbers like 3, 2, 1, 0, so on and so forth. Numbers are less than 4. But if I were to say, okay, 4 or less, that means we're going to do the number 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, so on and so forth. So it's adding that 4 because we're saying 4 or less. Makes sense. Duh. Just throwing it out there because, again, people sometimes people just struggle. Now, another one that could happen is, let's say, no more than. Versus at least 4. So looking at that, we have no more than 4 versus at least 4. So if I were to say no more than 4, does that include 4 or not? It does include 4. So it's going to be 4, but no more than 4. So that means it includes everything else below that. So no more than 4. So you have 4, then everything is less than that. All right. Then the other part says at least 4. So if we're saying at least 4, that means it's going to be at least using 4, but it can be more than that. So that's 4 or more. And write that, 4 or more. Or more. So that means that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So on and so forth. So 4 or more. Let's talk about that. At least 4. All right. So with that, that's going to be important for what's coming up. So I just want to throw that in there. And guys, that's it. Here we go.